Art is representative of the world around us and can reveal exciting and dark truths about the intricacies of life. In specific, the types of art that I will be focusing on today are from two periods, the Post-Impressionism and the Modernist eras of the late 1800s to mid-1900s. Britannica details that the Post-Impressionism era led away from the naturalistic approach and towards the two major movements of the early 20th century, which sought to evoke emotion through color and line. The Modernist period largely overlaps with that of the Post-Impressionism era, being that it took place from 1890 to roughly 1950. Largely, both of these periods attempted to move away from the previous notions of art and focus on meaning being depicted through lines and form. The two pieces that we're going to be looking at today are from these periods and use dark imagery to convey, in my opinion, the bleak consequences of humanity's blissful nature in the pursuit of progress. These two pieces, I feel, exemplify the same concept but from two different approaches. One uses bleak realism while the other leans heavily into abstraction to convey this message. Both pieces carry a somber and gloomy tone which I found spoke deeply to me. These pieces are Glow of the City by Martin Lewis, 1929, and Apparition by Odilon Redon from 1889. Martin Lewis is well known for his work portraying New York life in the early 1900s. According to his biography listed on the National Gallery of Art, he was born in Australia and spent most of his childhood working various jobs. He had worked in logging and mining camps, and even towards the end of his life ended up working as a sailor in his youth. Lewis also left Australia in 1900 and first settled in San Francisco before eventually working his way eastward toward New York, according to the National Gallery of Art. His artwork is especially appreciated for his attention to detail seen in his realistic portrayals of daily life and his texturing skills. In Lewis's piece Glow of the City, a thin woman standing on a tenement fire escape stares past the apartments surrounding her and into the sky where a building pierces the horizon. Prior to getting into some of the symbolism used here, it is important to give credit to the mastery shown in this piece. Lewis uses a series of dots to create textures with much greater depth than that of similar works from his time. The use of dots allows for more realistic lighting, but also for effects like transparency as seen in the woman's shirt. Getting into some of the symbolism, Lewis is obviously contrasting the nature of classes during the industrialization period in New York. Upon first glance, we notice that his image has two focal points, being the woman and the skyscraper. Beginning with the woman, there is intentionally a large amount of detail placed in her body characteristics. However, when drawing our attention towards her face, we can see that Lewis purposefully hid it in darkness. I believe that this was done to make the woman representative of humanity as a whole. We see the woman is thin and wearing presumably cheap clothing due to her breasts being visible through the clothing. This, combined with her seemingly living in tenement housing, implies that she is a person of lower class. Before furthering the conversation on how the woman fits into the overall metaphor, let's explore the skyscraper a little bit. Contrast is a large theme in this piece. It conveys class, living quality, and more. The skyscraper is the brightest part of this piece, with the light emanating from it seemingly lighting up the whole sky. The building surrounding the woman, for reference, is completely shrouded in darkness aside from the windows. This contrast metaphorically is used in two ways. The lighting of the skyscraper is seen paralleled in every window of the tenements, also dressing the woman on the fire escape. This indicates a connection between the three. The contrast also helps the viewer understand where the woman's gaze is directed, considering that we are not able to see her face nor where her eyes are directed. The surroundings are all shadowed in darkness aside from the distant skyscraper, and metaphorically speaking, the poor woman's averted gaze towards the wealth and comfort seen depicted through the skyscraper shows blissfulness in humanity's longing for progression. The low-class housing takes up the majority of the frame, showing the bleak living conditions placed on others in the pursuit of wealth and comfort. The woman, although living here, chooses to ignore the state of her surroundings and look to the building in the sky instead. Moving to our next piece, Odilon Redon, also known as Bertrand Jean Redon, was a French symbolist painter and printmaker. According to the website Odilon Redon, Redon started drawing as a young child, and at age 15 he began formal study in drawing, but on the insistence of his father he switched to architecture. He put his artistic career on pause though in 1870 when he joined the French army during the Franco-Prussian War. According to the same biography, after the war he would move to Paris and begin working almost entirely with charcoal to create his symbolic pieces. His piece Apparition is an extremely complicated piece to understand upon first glance, but upon multiple revisions I feel fairly confident in my interpretation of the piece, although it is rather abstract, and it's important to note that this is mostly up to viewer interpretation. The bottom third of the image is the darkest of the whole piece. It shows what can be interpreted as the ocean due to the lateral wavy-like charcoal strokes in the bottom right third of the piece being drawn upwards towards the helm of the bearded-like entity. The entity has hollowed-out eyes that are shrouded in darkness and noticeable wrinkling throughout his face. The entity's helm also expels the contents that came from below into an orb-like structure in the middle top third of the frame. There is a lot to unpack here, but firstly I think it is extremely important to point out the metaphorical usage of the ocean here. I believe the ocean in this piece, or simply put the lower third of the frame, considering the majority of it is very abstract, depicts natural life and the randomness that accompanies it. The lines are chaotic before being organized when pulled towards the entity's helm. The entity, similar to the woman from the previous piece, I believe is representative of humanity. The point of power on this entity, being the helm, indicates that the inner desires of humanity are ultimately what is fueling the order that follows when the lines from below are expelled back towards the orb in the upper left portion of the frame. The orb could be attempting to represent the world at the final state of humanity's progress, but it is not yet completed. The eyes of the entity being hollowed out and darkened implies that humanity has lost its way, and is blissful to what it is truly doing in the process of deriving order from the chaos of nature. The wrinkles surrounding the entity's eyes also points to inward damage being done towards humanity in the pursuit of this order. Overall, both of these pieces were extremely impactful to me and caused me to be more introspective with regard to my actions. Although some of my interpretations may have been far-fetched, I would really appreciate to hear what you guys took away from each of these two pieces. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed listening.